During the past 175 years, Trinity Lutheran has had 26 pastors, of which 9 remain living to this day. We lost one pastor in 2017, which he was Paul Darn. He passed 5 months after his wife passed. Life is Gloria. We have, and this was part of trivia before, the pastor who served Trinity for the longest, and that was for 32 years. That was, I lost my place. Thank you. Oh, his name was Friedrich Hollis. I believe he was what, the 3rd or 4th pastor at Trinity. And the shortest, actually, I just said before, was Pastor excuse me, Pastor Botke. Pastor Darn served us from 67 until 1975. Pastor Darn was the last pastor that he and Gloria and their children lived in the parsonage, and then he bought his own home while he was still serving. Following Pastor Darn, Pastor Donald Lotion was called, and he accepted the call, and served from 76 until 1992. Initially, Pastor Lotion and Arlene, they had RSVP'd that they were going to be here and come up from Texas. They now live in Nacogdoches, Texas. There was a thing that came up they were not aware of. Their grandson was going to be graduating from the Marine Corps basic training, and they definitely wanted to be there for that event. So they expressed their regrets that they would not make it. After Pastor Lotion, we called, and he accepted, was Pastor Kenneth Wagner. And he served Trinity, this is one of the shorter ones that Clay was talking about, from 1992 to 95. Pastor Wagner and his wife Brenda, they now live in Cartersville, Georgia. He's retired, although he is serving a church with a school during their vacancy. Just a little story. Back, I think it was in about 1992, the church wanted to have the interior of our church painted. Well, I had just taken an early retirement, and my son David, he was in between jobs, so there was some manpowers available, so we agreed to paint the interior of the church. Well, we were just about finished. It took us about a week. We were just about finished. I was working on the back wall, on my knees, cutting in by the baseboard, and I heard some footsteps. David was in the narthex at the time, I believe. And I looked up, and here was this gentleman. I had never met him before, and he had a collar on, and he introduced himself as Pastor Wagner. And he was carrying this brown bag with him. And we talked just briefly, and he said, well, I got to get going. I just stopped by to take a look at the parsonage again. So he handed me the paper bag, and he said, go ahead and open it. You may want to need this after a while. So I opened it up, pulled out, here was a 6-pack stag beer. And I think our microphone just went out. Okay. Then we had Pastor Tesson. He served Trinity from 1995 to 98. Now he and his wife reside in St. Louis. Then David Faulkner served Trinity from 1999 to 2003, I'm sorry. Then Reverend Dr. Tyler Arnold served Trinity from 2004 through 2006. Pastor and his wife Andrea, the 2 sons, were the last pastor's family that lived in our parsonage. They lived there for a period of time until their house in which they bought closed. Pastor serves at the Village Lutheran Church in Ladue, Missouri. Cool. Their son Jacob is here. Jacob left, I'm sorry. And their other son, Benjamin, is stationed in Hawaii. He's in the Marine Corps. And I don't know, this guy's name comes up every once in a while. Reverend Dr. Michael Combs served Trinity from 2007 to 2014. He's retired, and they live up in Sioux City, Iowa. After they accepted the call, or he accepted the call, they moved from Dupo, where he had been living, or they had been living, and they moved up and bought their home in Millstock. One of the things that occurred during Pastor's come here at Trinity was he established, documented, and researched the establishment of the First Responders Chaplaincy Program. Initially, he had coordinated with, and if I tell this wrong, Pastor, you can call me out. You've done that before, so. Initially, it was supposed to be an agreement amongst our pastor of another church, Zion, and also the priest at St. James. Well, it turned out that Pastor Cum was the only one that was active doing the program. And currently, that program's still going. Pastor Hill is very active with the chaplaincy program. Okay, now we're going to talk about vacancy pastors briefly. I got educated today. There's such a thing as vacancy pastors, and there's such a thing as interim pastors. In Trinity's records, they're all called vacancy pastors. Interim pastor is when that individual, that pastor, does not have a church, and he is serving the church that he was called to serve as to fill the vacancy. But if it's a vacancy pastor, that means the pastor has a church, and he's also supplementing his time to serve the church that has a vacancy. But for what's in my mind, I'm going to call them all vacancy pastors. And as we go through these, the next 2 or 3 minutes or 5 minutes, I'm going to give the opportunity to the pastors if they wish to say a few words. They don't have to, though. It's up to them. First one is lives in Lebanon, Illinois. Pastor Darwin Schroeder. He's here with his wife. I think Karen had to leave for another thing to do, so Karen's not here. Pastor served as I'm going to call it right here, an interim pastor twice for Trinity. Pastor, do you have anything you'd like to say today?
Yes, pastors always have something to say. Butch got in touch with us. In fact, he talked to my wife and said that he just wanted me to speak a few words. Well, I was thinking maybe of a 45 or 50-minute presentation, but I'm going to make it extremely brief because the interim congregation I'm serving now, Holy Cross Livingston, it never fails when you're in a hurry to get out of the church there, to get down here for the anniversary service. Somebody says, "Pastor, I need to talk to you after the service." And the person told me that her father is critically ill in the nursing home in Alhambra and would like me to come and see him this afternoon. So it's to your advantage. So I'm going to cut down the 45-minute presentation to about an 8 or a 10-minute one. But it was certainly a great joy to serve here in 1992 and again in 2007. And when I walked in here today, several people told me how much they appreciated some of the things I said to them when I served here as pastor. I didn't have the foggiest idea what they were saying, but they were very sincere and said how much it was meaningful for them for having me as their pastor during those 2 short interims. So, and it is always a great honor to serve God's people, and I've been involved in a number of anniversary services at my home congregation, St. John's Ruma, and in a former interim at Trinity, Iuka. So that's been one of the great joys I've had in my interim ministry going all the way back to 1987. I've had a wonderful opportunity to meet and serve so many of God's people. When I was here, it was not just doing the normal things you would expect of a pastor. And one thing I liked about Trinity Millstadt was the fact that they often put on various kinds of performances and shows. One of my performances, I was George Burns. That wasn't my real claim to fame. What the people really liked was the fact that I was able to do a number of impersonations. And first thing Butch said before I would speak, he said, "Are you going to do your Richard Nixon?" And I immediately got right into form. "Yes, I'd be happy to do that. I was your president. They called me Tricky Dicky. But let me make this perfectly clear. I may have been as guilty of sin in Watergate, but I never cheated on Pat, no. And, you know, after the presidency, there's still another life. Many of you don't know that for many years after that, I was a used car salesman in California. Operated a little place called Millhouse Motors. Could put you in a nice little job for $1,200. It was a great experience, so there was life after the presidency. Another one that I kind of like, and people have asked me, well, how in the world can you do impersonations? Either I can do them or I can't. And I was trying so hard to do Bill Clinton. I couldn't get it. It just, it's terrible, terrible, terrible. But then one winter he caught a cold and he had laryngitis. And I realized that unlike the rest of us, where our sound comes from the nose or the mouth, where does his sound come from? His throat. Like this, say I'm Bill Clinton now, you know, I was your president, you know, I had all kind of problems, you know. Well, they were always hanging around waiting for another shoe to drop, and it was usually a high heel. It was great. It's really great. So again, a real joy and a blessing to serve here, and I'll say goodbye and head off to do my nursing home visit. So.